So it's officially been over a week since I got the iPhone 15, and I can't lie guys, this phone has impressed me in so many ways that I'm kinda sitting here wondering if I should switch to this and ditch my 14 Pro Max for good. Yes, you probably think I'm crazy, but let me explain. I used to be a huge fan of the 6.1-inch regular iPhone. I had the XR, the 11, and the 12, and really the only reason I made the switch to the 13 Pro Max and then eventually the 14 Pro Max was for the battery life. I guess back then I was ready to compromise anything for the insane endurance the Pro Max devices had, but nowadays I do kinda wonder, is the major compromise in weight and comfort worth it for the slightly better endurance? Because as soon as I picked up the iPhone 15, the size just felt so right, and of course I've had 6.1-inch iPhones in the past, but the big difference with the 15 are the slightly rounder corners. When caseless, they make a big difference, but I should reiterate, this really only applies when caseless because for the majority of consumers using a case, you likely won't see much of a difference in terms of in-hand feel. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. However, I am someone who likes to occasionally live on the edge, and I actually did use the iPhone 12 back in the day caseless. Ceramic shield did not age as well to be found, that phone, because literally the air can somehow scratch it, but I'm still willing to risk using this phone caseless again because it just feels so good without a case, and this design has to be fully appreciated. And another small thing to note about the design, because the edges are now slightly round on the device, the seam between the glass and aluminium rails is so flush that this feels like a one-piece design similar to the iPhone 5C. It's really quite nice. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've just stared at a new iPhone and appreciated the design. Heck, I'm slowly becoming like Johnny Ive at this point. But guys, this is a hot phone, I can't lie. I mean, for many years we've wanted the regular iPhones to gain the matte finish on the back, and now we have it, especially in this matte black finish. It's everything I wanted, and it's a super classy device. I am absolutely in love with the design, and dare I say this looks better than even the Pros because unlike titanium, the aluminium rails don't pick up as many fingerprints, and it's just matte everywhere, which looks incredible. But you may be wondering, am I really not missing anything from my 14 Pro Max? And honestly, no, for the most part. There is one small thing I wish the 15 had, and it's not 120Hz like some of you guys might expect me to say. No, it's macro support. In fact, what really stops this phone from being a 10 out of 10 in my books is the fact the ultra-wide has been exactly the same since the iPhone 11. Yes, a phone that came out 4 bloody years ago. Are we being serious? Apple, come on. It's about time the base iPhones get the better ultra-wide, because I do use macro occasionally for B-roll, and I'm kinda gutted it's not here on the 15, but it's not a deal breaker, I can live without it. And let's talk about the overall camera experience, because apart from the somewhat disappointing ultra-wide, everything else has been great. Beginning with the main lens, it's now 48 megapixels, and I know my 14 Pro Max has a similar sensor to this, but only the 15 can bin down these shots to 24 megapixels. The 14 is 12 megapixels by default. And so you do pick up on the additional detail the 15 gives you. It's a sharper image. Now I know there's going to be people shouting in the comments, hey bro, FYI, the 14 Pro has the 48 megapixel high format, and well, that's true, but you do lose out on live photos, which is a deal breaker for me. So yes, the 24 megapixel mode is the ideal choice for my photography needs, and well, that's only on the 15. But it's not just that guys, there is more polish here with the 15. Smart HDR5 makes quite a big difference because for the last 2 years, we've been complaining that Smart HDR4 on the 14 and 13 produced over-processed images that would sometimes look like hot garbage. And so when using the 15, you're going to immediately notice the skin tones and colors in general are much more realistic and lifelike. They're not over-processed. Also, something I've quickly come to appreciate are next-gen portraits. Now, the portrait mode itself isn't radically different, but the new thing here is that the 15 automatically collects the data the phone needs for portraits, and so you can now turn most photos into portrait in post, and that is super clutch. Now I am aware the 14 can readjust the focus in post, but in terms of automatically collecting the data needed, only the 15 has this. Now you could argue the 14 Pro has the hardware for Apple to bring this down to the older phone, but let's be honest, Apple's not going to do that, and so for those reasons, I do prefer taking photos with the 15. But surely I missed a telephoto, right? Well no, I really didn't. Last year I was rarely using the 3x on my 14 Pro, it's an awkward lens option, and frankly the 2x crop with the main sensor was so good, it was plenty enough for my zooming needs. And well, the 15 now has this as well. Now Apple does kind of falsely advertise this as a 2x telephoto. I see what you're doing, Timothy, that's a little cheeky, but at the same time this actually is as good as a dedicated telephoto, so yes, I'm happy with this. I really don't need more zoom than what the 15 offers. The 5x on the 15 Pro Max is very cool, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't pay $400 more for just that, especially when you get a very similar camera experience with the base iPhone 15. And the cherry on top has to be the fact video is always excellent on the 15 without me having to do anything. That's great for a creator like myself. Selfies also look great on this, and one advantage the 15 has over my 14 Pro Max is the focus distance the main lens has. I complained about this in my 14 Pro Max review last year, but basically because the main lens is so large on the 14 Pro Max, you had to rely on the macro feature for any close objects. However, because the 15's main sensor is smaller, this means it doesn't struggle as much. You can bring objects closer to it, and the main lens will take a very clear image. And because I can't tell much of a difference between these sensors, I would rather have this smaller sensor that has no focus issues. Moving on to the display, I'm sure many are going to mention, how can you live with a 60Hz iPhone in 2023, bro? It's a scam. But honestly, I don't care. Yes, if I put both phones side to side, there is a difference, but no one's using a 60Hz and 120Hz device together like this, and so when I put the 14 Pro Max away and just use the 15 for regular usage, I really did not care about the 60Hz panel on this and just went along with my day. The same goes for the always on display, because I actually turned this off on my 14 Pro Max because it was an absolute battery hog, and so once again, I didn't care or notice the 15 not having this. If anything, Apple's retained the best part about the 14 Pro display, which is the excellent brightness. This also has 1000 nits of brightness for typical use, 1600 nits for HDR content, and a whopping 2000 nits of brightness outdoors. And this is the game changer, guys. It finally makes the 15 viewable in sunlight, and I actually don't pick up on the phone overheating as such when it's pumping out 2000 nits of brightness, so this very much is a useful upgrade. The island is also slowly becoming more useful within iOS. Another thing I love about the 15 is the endurance. Apple, on their site, actually claims the Pro phones have much more endurance in terms of video playback, but honestly guys, when it comes to regular usage, the regular phones actually destroy the Pro phones, and that's very much been the case for me as well. And you know what's funny, guys? I'm using a regular iPhone 15 and I'm coming from a 14 Pro Max, but the smaller phone is getting the better endurance. Now, before people shout at me in the comments, yes, this is a phone I've been using for over a year at this point, and so the battery has of course degraded, but I do have screenshots of the screen on time I was getting with the 14 Pro Max at launch, and it's only 1 hour better than the regular 15. Yes, you heard me right. The smaller 6.1-inch base iPhone 15 is only an hour behind the 14 Pro Max. And also I do want to mention, with the 14, battery life was all over the place. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it was pretty average, and other times it was absolutely terrible. And so another big plus with the 15 is that the battery life is very consistent, and in the last week of testing it, it's been fantastic. I've consistently been getting 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. And so when I'm getting this kind of battery life on the regular 15, just imagine the kind of endurance you could be getting on the 15 Plus. It's undoubtedly a big selling point for the regular phones, especially when you're not missing out on much features wise. Now let's quickly talk about the boring aspects of the device that I don't care about that much, and that begins with USB-C, because I wirelessly charge my phones, and so I was actually fine with Lightning, and so this change makes no difference. It's also why the USB 2 speeds on the 15 makes no difference to me because I'm not transferring things on a regular basis. Performance is solid. It's an iPhone at the end of the day. When was the last time an iPhone was slow to use? And so yes, as one expects, it's great. 6 gigs of RAM is also plenty, apps stay in the background. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and 5G performance have all been solid, and the speakers and mics are also excellent on this. Here's a sample for you guys. And here's a quick mic test on the iPhone 15. So in a nutshell, I truly believe this is the year where you could easily skip the pros and you really would not be missing out on much. I definitely have no FOMO from not having one of the Pro phones because everything you need from an iPhone is here with the regular 15. And judging by the overheating issues I've seen regarding the iPhone 15 Pro because of the A17, I'm sure the regular iPhone's gonna be much more reliable as well. I've personally had no overheating issues. This phone has been cool as a cucumber. The glory days of the regular iPhone are back, guys, and especially when me, a pro user, wants to use a regular iPhone instead, that should tell you how the 15's more than fine for 99% of consumers. I'm absolutely impressed, and I guess I now have the hard decision to work out which phone I want to keep, but anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.